Okay, welcome to the Mind Body Weight Loss Summit. I'm John Gabriel, author and creator of the Gabriel Method, a diet-free approach to sustained weight loss. And I'm very pleased today to be joined by JJ Virgin, who will be sharing her knowledge of sugar and how it affects our health and our weight. JJ Virgin helps clients lose weight fast by breaking free from food intolerances and crushing their sugar cravings. She's the author of the New York Times bestseller, The Virgin Diet and the Virgin Diet Cookbook, and also the recently released New York Times bestseller, The Sugar Impact Diet. JJ is also a frequent blogger at Huffington Post, Mind Body Green, and other outlets, as well as a popular guest on TV, radio, and magazines. As you're listening now, you can learn more about JJ and all her work at thesugarimpactdiet.com. So JJ, thanks so much for joining us today. I'm wondering if you could tell us, for starters, what exactly is sugar doing to our health?
Oh my gosh, it's more like, what is sugar not doing to our health, John? You know, when I started looking at the subject and went, okay, what are all the things that sugar is doing? And if you look at all the major diseases, it's not that sugar plays a role in all these diseases. It plays a starring role. I mean, if you look at cancer, it basically drives the insulin that drives tumor growth. And fructose specifically has now been implemented in these really aggressive forms of cancer. Heart disease, it is the leading cause of heart disease. And in women, it's the leading cause of death. It's the big driver for obesity. What's crazy when you look at the statistics here in the U.S., in the 1900s, we were consuming 5 pounds of sugar a year, and our obesity rate was 0.75%. And then 20 years ago, we were consuming 26 pounds of sugar a year, and our obesity rate was 10%. And now we're at 152 pounds of sugar a year,
Wow.
and 34.9%. I want to just...
That's almost a direct correlation, point by point. Like, if you're 3 or 5, you're 5 timesing the sugar, and the obesity is going up 3 to 5 times. I mean, that's staggering. I didn't realize that statistic. So we went from like 30 pounds of sugar to 120 some odd pounds of sugar in just that period, a couple of like 10, 20 years is what you're saying.
Yeah, and our bodies, I mean, I love what it says, but your body's run on sugar. I go, yeah, but it's not directly putting it in. It's able to take carbohydrates and then break them down, but you don't break it down for it. Your body needs to do the work. When you make your body, make it too easy on your body, it just leads to fatty liver and diabetes. It just, the list goes on and on.
I've heard one expert say you want to be a sugar maker, not a sugar eater.
That is the best one to say. Yeah, your body will make this stuff.
Yeah, right. But if you eat it, your body loses the ability to make it, and then you become dependent on it. What about artificial sweeteners?
You mean that science experiment that really went wrong?
Exactly.
When you look at sugar, artificial sweeteners, and you think, okay, we did this so that diabetics could eat these things, could still have cake and ice cream, right? Yeah. So the challenge is, we now know that women who drink a diet soda a day have a 30% higher risk of diabetes than women who don't. And so here's how it happens. They did this cool study, and I'm so excited to see this, because what it shows is that the artificial sweeteners feed the bad bacteria in your gut. They make you glucose intolerant in the course of a week. I mean, this isn't like most of these diseases like diabetes, heart disease, cancer. Hey, you don't become diabetic overnight. Right. You become diabetic over years, but you can become glucose intolerant, which will make you insulin resistant, which means you're better at storing fat and leading you into diabetes and heart disease. You can do that in a week with artificial sweeteners. So they make you want more sweet. They cause calorie dysregulation where you overeat. They mess up your gut, which if you have bad bacteria, you store more calories from the food you eat as fat. And they raise your blood sugar. They do everything they were set out not to do.
That's staggering, actually. I mean, because this whole calories in, calories out paradigm we think, oh, there's no calories. What you're saying basically is that has nothing to do with it. It's the hormonal dysregulation that's happening in our body as a result of it is basically turning our bodies into fat storage machines. I mean, if we're becoming glucose intolerant, and that study is an amazing study that you're mentioning, then we're elevating our insulin levels, our bodies are going into fat storage mode. Forget about the calories, we're turning our bodies into fat making machines, basically, is what you're saying.
20 years ago, I started saying, it's calories still count, but where they come from counts more, and we've got to stop looking at calories because our body's not a bank account. I was being taught in school to count calories, and you wanted to create a 500 calorie deficit every day, so we're doing this much exercise, that much calorie restriction, and I was going, but well, this isn't working. You know, you look at the whole thing and you go, okay, well, if we were just this math equation, this would be very simple.
Yeah.
But it didn't. In all the years that I did that, it worked with one person who was just perfectly metabolically healthy, right?
Right.
But for the rest of us, you know, the 70% now of the population who are overweight and obese, and then that other 30%, half of them are over fat, even though they're the right weight. You know, you have this metabolic dysregulation. And now that you know you can create that within 7 days with artificial sweeteners,
amazing.
And stress will do it too. Right. I mean, who's not got a little bit of a wonky hormonal system, right?
Right, or sleep problems, or dehydration, or so many different things. Now, what about, so you're saying that if we've gone from like 30 pounds of sugar a year to 127 pounds of sugar, obviously there's hidden sugar in things, right? I mean, so how can we tell where the sugar is?
Well, and here's the deal. We're eating less table sugar than ever. I mean, you rarely see someone go, I'll just, you know,
right.
You never do. But yet we're eating less table sugar, but we're eating more sugar overall. And that's because, and this all happened a couple decades ago, it was about 30 years ago, when two men got in a fight over what was causing heart disease. One was John Yudkin, a pioneer so ahead of his time, who wrote Pure, White, and Deadly and said, it is the sugar.
Right.
And the other was this guy Ansel Keys, who said it's the fat. Right. Ansel Keys, is killing people. His misinterpretation of the data is killing people, because what happened was he discredited Yudkin. Everyone fell for the fat is making us fat and making us have heart disease theory. So we pulled the fat out of food.
And I remember this so well.
Because I was eating all day long, because you were always hungry.
Always hungry, yeah. I did that. Listen, I went to the Pritikin Institute, right?
Yes,
I
trained people at the Pritikin Institute, John.
You know, and you know, I was just always hungry. You know, and my dad was an avid follower of Pritikin. He ate rice cakes all day long. He was just always hungry.
Gosh, that's crazy. I remember getting bags of their Pritikin muffins to take with me so I could just eat them all day long. Gosh, and I just battled my weight and my energy and my skin and everything else. It was crazy. So, you know, you look at what happened and so we start pulling the fat out. We put the sugar in. Hey, you save money doing that. Right. We also then stabilize the price of high fructose corn syrup at the same time. Talk about a really bad perfect storm. And I think the food manufacturers started to notice, hey, when we put sugar in, people like it and they buy more, right?
Of course.
So you have this whole issue now of, you know, the more sugar people get, the more they want. They're hooked. You're selling more food. We're getting used to it. So that's how we have it now, where it's sneaking into places you'd never think. I mean, marinara sauces that have more sugar than Oreo cookies. Come on.
Wow.
You know, I mean, seriously.
Who could even think of that? I mean, you think of a sauce, you think it's nothing. You put it on, but I had no idea. What about natural sugars like honey or agave? Can we?
Don't you love that? Well, so there's either natural or there's artificial.
Right.
And while you could argue there's something different about local, organic honey used homeopathically, a half a teaspoon a day, that's not what people are doing. They're getting the very processed in the bear and going, it's all natural. Well, you know, arsenic's not natural, mercury's natural. The deal is, all carbohydrates except fiber are going to be broken down into either glucose or fructose in the body. Right. Now, fructose has a very special place in the Hall of Shame. You know, I mean, glucose, you know, comes in, raises your blood sugar, triggers leptin, insulin, and ghrelin, which we thought was a problem, but at least gives you satiety. Fructose doesn't do that. It doesn't raise blood sugar, so we thought it was so great, which is why everyone thought agave was a health food, because agave is the highest fructose thing going, except for straight crystalline fructose. But it goes straight to the liver, where if it can't be turned into glucose and stored as glycogen, and like how big is the liver? There's not much room there. It gets turned into fat, which is why we have little kids. I mean, we have little kids with non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. We had to rename the disease. This should not be happening, but why is it? Because we are giving them apple juice. Apple juice is higher in fructose than a soda. It is worse for you than a soda, and yet the American Academy of Pediatrics says that it's perfectly safe for a 7-year-old to have 12 ounces of apple juice. Do you know that's 44 grams of sugar? And I'm not quite sure how much fructose. There's 11 grams of fructose in one apple alone. 11. I mean, this is crazy stuff, and you've unwrapped it out of the fiber and the pectins and the phytonutrients and just gone, bam, let's just hit the liver with that.
Yeah. So what are some safe sugar substitutes then?
Well, and that's the good news. And for me, I've always been all about swaps, because if you sit there and go, no, no, no,
Yeah,
no,
exactly.
no, like, yeah, 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 you know, they're like, I'm not listening to this. And the biggest ideal is to retrain your taste buds and reclaim your sweet sensitivity so that you appreciate things like cinnamon or savory stuff or spicy stuff or vanilla. And cinnamon's great because it actually balances your blood sugar and it's naturally sweet. Vanilla is great because it raises serotonin, one of the neurotransmitters that makes you stop craving sugar. But some other things you can use, monk fruit. I look at monk fruit and stevia the same. They're both sweet herbs. Monk fruit's been used in China for centuries. Both of these are safe for diabetics. Both of them actually have some health benefits to them. I also like the sugar alcohols, erythritol and xylitol, and I especially like those because they do have calories. So you won't get that calorie dysregulation phenomenon where you eat something sweet that's got no calories and your body starts to lose the ability to correlate sweetness with calories.
Can you say the monk one again? Because I actually am not familiar with that.
Monk fruit or it's called lo hong go.
Oh, lo hong go, yeah, okay.
Yeah, lo hong go
Right.
or monk fruit.
And I've never had it. You know how stevia has like a little bit of a bitter aftertaste. Does lo hong go also have that same bitter aftertaste?
You know, it depends on how you get it. And same with stevia. Like I use a fraction of stevia that doesn't do it. And with lo hong go, what I've noticed is if you use some of the liquid forms, it doesn't. But if you use some of the dry forms, it does. I think the key to these sugars is to mix them. Like what I did, I actually made one myself, and I took erythritol and stevia and glycine, which is an amino acid that's naturally sweet and helps with sugar control. And I put those together. I think the real deal is get some and then blend them. But the bigger goal is to not have to really use them.
Right.
So taper.
Right. So somewhere along the line, for example, for me, I lost my sweet tooth, and I was 400 pounds, and I was craving sugar night and day. So right now I don't crave sugar at all. So somewhere along the line there was this evolution. Is that something that can happen with people as they start to eat more healthy foods and less sugary foods, or where does that happen?
So I was raised on Pop-Tarts.
Yeah, well.
And Captain Crunch.
Yeah,
right?
Captain Crunch was my favorite, of course.
Yeah.
Except they got soggy too soon, but other than that, I love Captain Crunch.
Just eat fast. I mean, I never had them get soggy. And last long, John. But, I was raised on all the sugary stuff, donuts on Sunday. And what's interesting is I actually hate the sweet stuff now.
Yes.
So I believe, even whether it's genetic, because there's a variety of reasons we get a sweet tooth, from stress to genes to GI issues to training. Yeah. Most of it's training, exposure equals preference. But I believe you can untrain yourself too. I actually ran 700 people through the Sugar Impact Program as a pilot study first, before, as I was writing the book, because I wanted to prove it and make sure it wasn't just a theory of mine. And that's what I found, is I took diehard sugar addicts and in 2 weeks completely retrained their taste buds to appreciate natural sweetness, with the end goal, and they kept telling me this, so I know this happened, is that sweet food tasted too sweet. It tasted disgusting. Yeah. So for those of you listening going, it can happen. I literally think things taste too sweet.
I can't taste anything sweet. I can't taste anything processed. I mean, I don't have to read the ingredients. I will know if there's any processed sugar at all in anything that I eat, and my body just instantly rejects it. And it's a very natural thing now. But at the time, I remember when I was first trying to lose weight, I was looking for anything, anything to get any kind of sweetness in. So what do you say to people who say, you need sugar for energy?
They have trained their body to do that. Actually, your body shouldn't be needing sugar to run. You should be able to access stored body fat for fuel. I mean, ideally, you've trained your body. Idea. Yeah, you want to keep insulin low.
Right.
So, that's why snacking makes me crazy, because if you're snacking, and most people are not snacking on wild salmon. Right. They're snacking on silly snack packs, right? And when you snack on that, you raise blood sugar and you raise insulin. If you're eating every 2 to 3 hours, that insulin never has time to come back down to the low fasting levels. And if it's up there, you can't access fat for fuel.
And what if you're eating foods that don't elevate insulin, like you say, if you're eating salmon and healthy fats?
Well, but here's the thing. If you're eating what I call the sugar impact plate. So I know we're, simpatico with this, with clean, lean protein, like, wild salmon, and that's great because it has healthy fats there too, but avocado and coconut and nuts and seeds and lots of non-starchy vegetables, maybe a little low carbs like quinoa or beans. You're not hungry every 2 to 3 hours. If you eat
that's actually really true. That's actually true.
Oh my God, I didn't eat.
Yeah. All these healthy foods you're mentioning, they keep your blood sugar stable for hours.
Yeah.
I know that. Yeah, I can feel that in my body. So that's actually true. So one of your strategies then you're saying is if you're eating these really healthy, real foods that are not high in sugars or processed sugars, but rather high in healthy fats and healthy proteins and live foods, that you're just not going to be hungry for hours. And you're also not going to be keeping your insulin levels elevated all the time, which means you're not going to be in fat storage mode all the time, which means you're actually going to be able to burn fat instead of store fat. That's the idea?
Which gives you this nice steady energy.
Yeah.
And then it really gets people off of that whole energy roller coaster where they're relying on sugar for energy, and it also gets them off the diet roller coaster. I know you can relate to this. The whole this is dieting as a hobby.
Yeah.
Craziness.
Yeah, exactly. As an addiction. And on the same note as addiction, how does sugar, a lot of people are saying sugar is an addiction now. What's your take on that?
I actually just I have sugar on Google Alerts, and I get this Google alert on this newspaper article that said, people are calling sugar a drug, and it's not a drug. There's no proof. I'm like, I guess you haven't looked at the research on cocaine being, sugar is 8 times more addictive than cocaine. A very cool study they did on rats at Connecticut College. They gave rats morphine and Oreos, and they were monitoring their brain, and both lit up the reward center in the brain. And then they gave them the choice. Which one did they want? Yeah. And I mean, the rats choose the Oreos over the morphine.
That's staggering. I mean, let's face it. We're talking about morphine here, one of the most addictive drugs on the planet, and they're using Oreo cookies, which really, to me, speaks to the heart of the fact that we've got companies that have billions and billions of dollars at their disposal that are trying to figure out how to get you to like foods, and they know what they're doing.
They're making you a drug addict. I mean, if you look at it, sugar
is
worldwide, it's the #1 drug of choice.
Yeah.
And you look at what are feeding our kids, the juice and cookies, you're turning your kids into drug addicts because exposure equals preference. You're changing their metabolism at an early age. We've got kids, showing all sorts of signs of diabetes and heart disease in their teens. 20% of the U.S. teens now are obese. It is crazy stuff, and sugar is a drug. And I looked at all of the programs out there on dealing with sugar, and I go, no one's treating this like a drug. They're going, okay, quit. I'm like, if you did that with someone who was an alcoholic or a drug addict, you put them into a rehab center. Yeah. You wouldn't just say, okay, pull that out. Go cold turkey.
So in your sugar impact diet and approach, do you have a way of helping people break this addiction?
Absolutely. And it's not like we're just going to go cold turkey, because I think that sets you up for, you've got maybe 1 day, 2 days, and you're going to be running for some cookies. Right. You've got to first become aware of where all it's sneaking in. Because I think for so many people, they don't realize the marinara sauce, that dressing, that glazed salmon that's just shined with sugar, the dried fruit in the salad. They don't realize all the places, because it's not just the manufacturers, it's also all the restaurants too. Everyone's catering to this because you're not going to come back otherwise. Yeah. And so first you have to identify all the places it's sneaking in. And you know what, John, even the most healthy people, I was surprised at some of the things. I'm like, I got to stop all this balsamic vinaigrette that I think is so great. Yeah. So all those places it's sneaking in, and you identify really the basic, I call it your body's early warning system. We look at things like diabetes and heart disease, but really it's the fatigue, it's the gas and bloating, it's the moodiness, those types of things. And then you taper. You start you've got to taper down your sugar impact. You do not just go boof and cut it out.
Yeah. I'll tell you what, one insidious place that I was just looking at this morning, right before I spoke to you, is kale chips. So, when you're eating kale chips, you're thinking to yourself, I'm Mr. Healthy, right? I'm doing the healthiest thing in the world. And I'm eating this kale chip, and I got this feeling in my body, and my body's really sensitive to sugar. And it's like, hold on a second, this is a kale chip, I shouldn't be having that. I read the back of it, it's got coconut palm sugar, and it's got 8 grams of sugar in the package, which is and the package I could easily, take down in 2 minutes.
Oh, I'd eat a couple.
Right, right. So, and you're thinking to yourself, wow, I'm the healthiest person in the world, I just ate kale chips. And so it is so insidious, and that it's just in every aspect of our life.
It is. And you know, it was so funny when kale chips first came on the market. We were used to making them ourselves. I'm like, cool, they're on the market. I bought them. I had the worst stomach ache. And I
Yeah,
looked back, I'm like, oh, idiot. You know, didn't you read the label? I'm
yeah.
like, kale chips shouldn't have
That's
400 calories.
that's what I'm thinking. You shouldn't have to read labels on kale chips, but the reality is you do. And I'll tell you one other that happened that was a mind blower for me was I was drinking soda water, lemon flavored soda water, and it said right on it, naturally flavored. That's what it said. So I'm thinking this is soda water, and that's all it is, right? And I'm halfway through it, and I read the back, and what does it have? It has aspartame.
What?
Yes.
How could it do that?
I'll tell you how, because I researched this. I looked into it. It didn't say it was naturally sweetened. It said it was naturally flavored.
Oh, that is such dirt and pool.
Like that's exactly because it's not naturally. It's not an artificial flavoring. It's an artificial sweetener, and that like I figured if it's going to get me, and I'm neck deep in this stuff, most of us don't have a prayer. So if we want to learn more about the sugar impact diet and more about what you're doing, because the stuff you're doing is fabulous. And by the way, I was at a conference with you, as you know, that you held a few months ago, and you catered the whole thing, and the food was fabulous. I loved the food, and I loved the fact that it was an all-you-could-eat of just delicious, amazing food. Did keep you stable for hours. So I know that the type of foods that you're recommending are really delicious foods also. So if we want to learn more about how to eat this way and how to get off of sugar, what's the best way that we can reach you?
Sugarimpact.com.
Sugarimpact.com.
And what I've done, I want to take out all of the reasons people don't ever get started. So it's like there's training videos, quizzes, everything you need to do to get started. Because, I look at this, and if you're looking at the biggest thing that you can shift to change your health, and your energy and really everything in your family's health, it's lowering your sugar impact. And it's really easier than people see. And especially it's not that painful because you do it over time. You just start trading, it's like.
That's exactly what I did in my approach, is that I didn't cut out sugar initially. I just kept adding and adding healthy things. So that did, eventually I stopped craving it. And so that approach does work. I love your approach, especially because you really, really understand all of the different subtle hormonal impacts of sugar. So I'm loving the work that you're doing. So
thank you. I so appreciate it. I'm back at you. It's so great to finally meet you.
Yeah, me too. You. And so thanks very much for your time and your expertise and sharing it with us. And I really appreciate it. And we're going to definitely check out the Sugar Impact Diet and your site. So
thank you. My pleasure.
Thanks. Okay, thanks everyone for listening. Definitely check out JJ Virgin's Sugar Impact Diet. She really understands this stuff well and has really sensible and tasty approaches for transitioning out of sugar. I know this because when I was at her conference, the food was awesome. So definitely check it out, and I'll speak to you real soon. Take care.